This is the lesson for Chapter 4, Section 6 and 7, review writing linear equations, day number 2. So let's take a look at our first type of problem that we'll end up seeing, and here we have to write an equation in slope-intercept form. So remember, slope-intercept form goes this way: y equals mx plus b. So m stands for the slope, and we have the y-intercept is b. And so when we're looking at these two problems, I'm going to look for the slope first. So I'm going to start with the left-hand point, and I'm going to go up to the elevation of the next point. And I see that these intervals are going by 2's. So when I do this, I got to count by 2's here. So this is one space right here. Half space is 1. And another half space is 2. So that's how far I go up, going up. So m equals 2 over. And then the intervals going left and right are just going by 1's. So I go a full space over, and that is 1. So the slope is 2. And you can see that from the points that they give you. See, from 7 to 9 is 2 spaces. From 0 to 1 is 1 space. So 2 to 1 is the slope, or 2. Now I just need to find out what the y-intercept is. And I'm looking at this point right here, where it crosses the y-axis. So that is the y-intercept. And so I see it crosses at positive 7. So I can write the answer as y equals 2x plus 7. So let's take a look at the next problem here. And it says, here I'll start at this left-hand point and work my way down to the elevation of the next point. Notice again, these y values are going by 2's. So when I count spaces, I need to make sure I watch for that. So this is going to be 1 space. And then here's 2, so that's 3, 4, so it's 1, 3, 5, 7, and then I just have to go a half a space down, so that makes 8 spaces. And we can check by looking at those y values. See, it goes from -1 to -9, that's 8 spaces. So my slope so far is down 8. So down means that it's going to end up being a negative number there. So down 8 means -8. So I look at my x values. Looking at the intervals, they're going by 1's. So I'll count the spaces. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 spaces. So again, I could have counted from -5 to 3 is 8 spaces. And so my slope ends up being a -1 when I reduce that. So now I have to find my y-intercept. It's where it crosses the y-axis. Right here it is, and that looks like it's going to end up being -6. So that's my y-intercept at -6. So I just have to write the equation in that slope-intercept form. So I'll write -1x minus 6, which is the same thing as saying y equals the opposite of x minus 6. Either way ends up working. So notice that we have one that's a positive slope going uphill from left to right. Negatives are going downhill. So that's something to look for. As you just look at the equation, they're asking us to write it in the slope-intercept form. Look at the lines. If it's an increasing line like this one, x values are getting bigger. As y values get bigger, then you know it's a positive slope. Here, x values are getting bigger also, but the y values are going down. They're getting smaller. So in this one, it's doing the same thing. They're asking us to write the equation in the slope-intercept form. So let's take a look at that form again. And remember I said that m represents the slope. It's the rate of change. And so that slope represents rate of change. Now, on a word problem, the y-intercept represents something. That y-intercept is the beginning point. It's where we start. It's the initial value. So that's another key phrase there. Initial value. And so oftentimes we're going to look for that initial value, or that beginning point. And that'll be the y-intercept. So as I read this, it says you organize a garage sale. You have $30 at the beginning of the sale. See right there, $30 at the beginning of the sale. Beginning, key word there. And so whenever you see something about an initial fee or a beginning value, a starting point, that is going to end up being your y-intercept. Then it says you earn an average of $20 per hour. Key word there is per. Per tells us that we're comparing two units, and so we're comparing the dollars And the hours, we're writing a ratio for that. Per, again, means the fraction bar there. And another word you might end up seeing there in place of that is each. So those are key phrases, words that tell us that we might be dealing with the slope there. Now I know I'm dealing with the slope when I find out what my variables are. Y is money, which is right there, dollars. X is hours, which is right over here. Denominator is hours. So as soon as I see my variables represent the same units as that rate that I suspected that was the rate, then I know that definitely is going to end up being our rate. So M equals 20, B equals 30. I write the equation in that form. Y equals M. Oops, in this place of M, I'm going to put that number this time. So Y equals 20x plus 30. Let's take a look at our next type of problem here. Here we have to write the equation. It's not giving us the y-intercept right away, so we're going to use point slope. So it says write in point slope form an equation of the line that passes through the given point and has a given slope. So I'm going to do more than that. I'm going to go ahead and simplify into slope-intercept form for you on these problems. So first thing, we need to know what point slope form is. It goes this way. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So we're basically taking a y component and an x component and the slope and putting it into this equation and coming up with a way to form the slope-intercept form. So we'll start with this point here. It gives us a slope. This is going to represent our x1 value. This is our y1 value. And so I substitute in. So I've got y minus 6 equals the slope of negative 3 times x minus negative 4. So anytime I see a minus negative right away, and so you'll know you'll have it whenever one of the terms is negative inside the ordered pair, you're going to end up getting that minus negative. And change that to plus positive. And so then your point slope form would be like this. Y minus 6 equals negative 3 times x plus 4. Now if I was to continue on, then I would end up putting it in slope-intercept form, which is nice because then it'll give us what that y-intercept is. I already know the slope because it's the negative 3 here, so I just don't know the y-intercept yet. So if I was to find that, I would distribute. So negative 3x minus 12, and then I'd add the 6. And that will give me what my y-intercept is along with the slope. So negative 3x minus 6. And negative 6 is the y-intercept. Negative 3 is the slope. That is slope-intercept form. So let's take a look at this one. Here we have y minus negative 1. So again, whenever you have that negative term there, it's going to end up making a plus positive. And then we have m, which is negative 4/3 times by x minus 3. So when it's just a positive number, you keep the negative in there. So I distribute, and I have y plus 1 equals negative 4/3 times x, and then this is tough here. Watch the signs. Negative and negative make a positive. Always figure your sign first. Look at the 3 down below. It's going to cross off this 3 here. You multiply across, we end up with 4. And then all I have to do is subtract the 1, and I've got my answer. Y equals negative 4/3 x plus 3. So on these problems, they're asking us to write an equation that passes through 2 points. So what we don't have is the slope. So we have to find that slope first. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to use the slope formula. M equals y minus y1 over x minus x1. And so I'll take the points. And so my two y values are 8 and 8. So I'm subtracting those. And then those are the y values again, y minus y1. Down below I'm going to put x values, so x minus x1. And so I'll rewrite this as negative 2 minus 3. So when I do the work, I get 0 over, add the opposite there, negative 5. So anytime I'm dividing a number into 0, I always get 0. So 0 is the slope. Let's write the equation. Now I'm going to use y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, the point slope formula. So I've got y minus, and then I'll use this point right here. It doesn't matter which point you pick. Just pick a point. Pick either point. So it doesn't matter which one. And so I'm going to rewrite y minus 8 equals 0 times x minus 3. So I distribute, and I have y minus 8 equals 0x minus 0. So I'm adding 8 to all sides, and I've got the answer right here. Y equals 0x plus 8. So 0x, remember 0 is the slope, you can write that as y equals 8. So either way would work out fine. Let's try this next one. So we'll find the slope first. Remember, you're subtracting the two y values first, y minus y1. So it's negative 3 take away 3. It doesn't matter which point you start at, you just have to be consistent. So since I started with the negative 3, I'm going to take the 6, start with the 6 and take away the 4. And those are my x values, x minus x1. And so from there I end up getting a negative 6. How do I get that? Well, I added the opposite here. And then down below I get positive 2, which makes negative 3 as the slope. And so from that point, I can go ahead and use point slope. So it doesn't matter which point you pick. I'm going to pick this point right here, just because it looks good. It doesn't really matter. Either point will work. So y minus 3 equals negative 3 times by x minus 4. So I distribute, and I've got y minus 3 equals negative 3x plus 12. Plus 12 because negative 3 and negative 4 make a positive 12. So from that point, all I'm doing is adding the 3 to both sides, and we get our answer. Y equals negative 3x plus 15. So those are those. Let's take a look at another word problem here. Here we have a situation where we're doing the same sort of thing. Again, we're trying to write it in the slope-intercept form. We're trying to figure out what is the rate of change. That's what the slope is, a rate of change. So the key word I'm looking for, words I'm looking for are each or per. And if those units match the units of x and y, then the comparison of those units, then I know I'm dealing with my slope. B is the initial fee, initial value, initial fee in this case here. And so that's what I'm looking for. Now, I'm not going to be given the y-intercept this time, so I'm going to end up having to find it. I'll probably be given an output and an input. Sometimes we're given those. And so that's what I'm looking for as I read on. And it says the total cost for bowling includes the fee for the shoe rental. So that's the initial amount. Initial fee right there. Plus a fee per game right there. You see the word per. So fee per game. Notice here it says total cost y, that's the fee, x games. See right there, games. So this is the slope. And so that's what I'm looking for. And so it says that the cost of each game increases by $4. Okay, so cost of each game, there is the key word there. It tells me I might be dealing with the slope. It's comparing games and dollars. So that's going to end up being my slope. So I know right away M equals 4. And that's increasing, so we know we're dealing with a positive slope. It's an increasing line. It's going up. It's not going to be going down in value. So now we read on it. It says after 3 games, the total cost with shoe rental is $14. That includes the shoe rental. So what they're giving me is an input and an output. The input is 3 games. That is the x component. The output is $14. That's the total cost. And so now, again, this represents our x value, this represents our y value. So now we can take those values and substitute. So we're going to use point slope. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And so I substitute. I've got y minus my output of $14 equals the slope, the rate of change of 4, times by x minus 3 games. So I distribute, and I've got y minus 14 equals 4x minus 12. So I add the 14 to both sides. Notice how I subtract because they're opposite in sign. I'm left with an answer of y equals 4x plus 2. Alright, so there's my equation. So what does that mean? Well, 4 represents the rate of change. That was the cost increase of each game. 2 represents the initial fee. So what is that initial fee? It's the shoe rentals. This is that initial fee right there, and that represents $2. $2 for the shoe rental. For shoe rental. And where is it represented in the equation? Well, which is the y-intercept. So another problem that they might ask us on the test is, well, predict how much is 7 games going to cost? Well, let's go ahead and figure it out. That's what the equation's for. Remember, this is our input right here. This is the number of games. And so I know what the number of games is. It's 7. So 4 times by 7 plus 2. So that makes 28 plus 2. That's going to be $30. So $30 for 7 games. Those are the types of problems we'll see on the homework. Good luck.